स्वामी ओम जय नित्यानंदा। ध्यायन्ति गायन्ति नमन्ति नित्यं ब्रह्म विष्णु शिवदेवा। नित्य ब्रह्म विष्णु शिवदेवा। तै प्रार्थितस्तस्य परावतारो। तै प्रार्थितस्तस्य परावतारो। विबाहुधारी नित्या। स्वामी ओम जय नित्यानंदा। ओम जय नित्यानंदा। स्वामी जय जय नित्यानंदा। लोकनाथ स्थितकाशो भगवान्। कलिकल्मषमग्नानां विद्या उद्धारणचिकीर्षया। स्वामी ओम जय नित्यानंदा। वन्दे जगद्बीजमखण्डमेकं सुरैर्सेवितपादपीठं। नित्यसेवितपादपीठं। वन्दे भवेशं भवरोगवैद्यं। वन्दे भवेशं भवरोगवैद्यं। तमेव वन्दे नित्यं। स्वामी ओम जय नित्यानंदा। ओम जय नित्यानंदा। स्वामी जय जय नित्यानंदा। लोकनाथ स्थितकाशो भगवान्। कलिकल्मषमग्नानां नित्या उद्धारणचिकीर्षया। स्वामी ओम जय Swami Om Jai Nithyananda.
जय परमहंस श्री श्री नित्यानंद स्वामी की जय.
Humanity has reached a level, we have evolved enough technology to provide food, clothes, shelter, medical care, all the fundamental basic needs for all 8 billion people. One side the homes foreclosure and the homes are just locked without people. The other side millions are in the platforms homeless. One side tons of food is getting wasted and getting destroyed to maintain the price. The other side millions dying without food. Millions of clothes used only once is dumped into ocean because people don't know what to do with it. I have decided KAILASA is going to pick up a project. I call that project as Ishanya, collecting these things which is getting dumped and wasted, which is in turn becoming hazard for the nature, and distributing it to the place and countries, people for whom it's a great boon. In this Chaturmasya alone, we will be able to bring 1 crore people out of poverty. Humanity has reached a level, we have evolved enough technology to provide food, clothes, shelter, medical care, all the fundamental basic needs for all 8 billion people. One side the homes foreclosure and the homes are just locked without people. The other side millions are in the platforms homeless. One side tons of food is getting wasted and getting destroyed to maintain the price. The other side millions dying without food. Millions of clothes used only once is dumped into ocean because people don't know what to do with it. I have decided KAILASA is going to pick up a project. I call that project as Ishanya, collecting these things which is getting dumped and wasted, which is in turn becoming hazard for the nature, and distributing it to the place and countries, people for whom it's a great boon. In this Chaturmasya alone, we will be able to bring 1 crore people out of poverty. Humanity has reached a level, we have evolved enough technology to provide food, clothes, shelter, medical care, all the fundamental basic needs for all 8 billion people. One side the homes foreclosure and the homes are just locked without people. The other side millions are in the platforms homeless. One side tons of food is getting wasted and getting destroyed to maintain the price. The other side, millions dying without food. Millions of clothes used only once is dumped into ocean because people don't know what to do with it. I have decided KAILASA is going to pick up a project. I call that project as Ishanya, collecting these things which is getting dumped and wasted, which is in turn becoming hazard for the nature, and distributing it to the place and countries, people for whom it's a great boon. In this Chaturmasya alone, we will be able to bring 1 crore people out of poverty. Humanity has reached a level, we have evolved enough technology to provide food, clothes, shelter, medical care, all the fundamental basic needs for all 8 billion people. One side the homes foreclosure and the homes are just locked without people. The other side, millions are in the platforms homeless. One side, tons of food is getting wasted and getting destroyed to maintain the price. The other side, millions dying without food. Millions of clothes used only once is dumped into ocean because people don't know what to do with it. I have decided KAILASA is going to pick up a project. I call that project as Ishanya, collecting these things which is getting dumped and wasted, which is in turn becoming hazard for the nature, and distributing it to the place and countries, people for whom it's a great boon. In this Chaturmasya alone, we will be able to bring 1 crore people out of poverty. Humanity has reached a level, we have evolved enough technology to provide food, clothes, shelter, medical care, all the fundamental basic needs for all 8 billion people. One side the homes foreclosure and the homes are just locked without people. The other side, millions are in the platforms homeless. One side, tons of food is getting wasted and getting destroyed to maintain the price. The other side, millions dying without food. Millions of clothes used only once is dumped into ocean because people don't know what to do with it. I have decided KAILASA is going to pick up a project. I call that project as Ishanya, collecting these things which is getting dumped and wasted, which is in turn becoming hazard for the nature, and distributing it to the place and countries, people for whom it's a great boon. In this Chaturmasya alone, we will be able to bring 1 crore people out of poverty. Humanity has reached a level, we have evolved enough technology to provide food, clothes, shelter, medical care, all the fundamental basic needs for all 8 billion people. One side the homes foreclosure and the homes are just locked without people. The other side, millions are in the platforms homeless. One side, tons of food is getting wasted and getting destroyed to maintain the price. The other side, millions dying without food. Millions of clothes used only once is dumped into ocean because people don't know what to do with it. I have decided KAILASA is going to pick up a project. I call that project as Ishanya, collecting these things which is getting dumped and wasted, which is in turn becoming hazard for the nature, and distributing it to the place and countries, people for whom it's a great boon. In this Chaturmasya alone, we will be able to bring 1 crore people out of poverty. Humanity has reached a level, we have evolved enough technology to provide food, clothes, shelter, medical care, all the fundamental basic needs for all 8 billion people. One side the homes foreclosure and the homes are just locked without people. The other side, millions are in the platforms homeless. One side, tons of food is getting wasted and getting destroyed to maintain the price. The other side, millions dying without food. Millions of clothes used only once.
Nithyanandam, welcome back to our morning pre-Satsang segment. In this current segment, we'll be looking at some of the contributions of Hindu nations throughout the past several thousand years. Hinduism, as we know, has been referred by the modern world as one of the cradles of modern human civilization. There was a time around 3200 BCE, at the end of the era of Mahabharata, when Hindus were present in several nations in large numbers and were organized and living as Hindu nations and ecosystems, which protected Hindu rights, and it created a conducive environment that enabled Hindus to contribute phenomenally to the human civilization. During this era, which existed several thousand years ago, around 3200 BCE, around 5000 years ago, 56 Hindu nations spanned over 61 million kilometers square landmass of Asia and protected more than 10,000 Hindu sampradayas or communities. These 56 Hindu nations and 10,000 sampradayas were a cradle of human civilizations and literally contributed every bit of advancement that human race benefits from even today. Now let us look at some of these contributions. Spirituality and science. The science of living enlightenment. Hinduism has revealed in Veda Agamas that Veda Agamas offers mankind a perfected science for attaining the state, the space, and the powers of Paramashiva. The open architecture framework of Hinduism reveals the core truths of self, universe, and divine. It empowers every individual to have the freedom to customize their own personalized God, personalized lifestyle, and personalized spiritual practice as per their needs and disposition. Economics. The Hindu economic policy resulted in the 56 Hindu nations such as Bharat becoming the world's richest and most wealthiest country. Prior to the invasions, the Hindu nations represented a whopping 25% of the global GDP. If we include civilizations that were very similar to the Hindu economic system, the other indigenous civilizations that followed the Hindu principles, the total contribution of the Hindu GDP to the world jumps to a whopping 60%. Material abundance was the lifestyle of all Hindus, and fundamental needs such as food, education, and healthcare were offered to all citizens free of charge as a basic right. Recent researches on economics, 2007, in a book called Counters of World Economy. This study reveals the global GDP from the era first AD to the present era, and it also projects the future GDP up until the year 2030. This is a historical global contribution to the world's GDP by major economies. Before the 18th century, the 56 Hindu nation and other Asian countries such as China were the two largest economies by their GDP, the gross domestic product. During the past 2000 years of the Hindu Holocaust, the GDP share of the Hindu nations constantly fell. It is only during the rule of Hindu emperors like Shivaji that the relative GDP of the Hindu nations rose in the last 1000 years of period. In the graph, we can clearly see before the invasions, before the colonial era, how the GDP was contributing more than 25%. The Hindu GDP contributed more than 25% of the global GDP. By the end of the colonial era in 1950, it was less than 5% of the global GDP. In fact, when we go further back in time, around 1200 CE, before the major terrorist invasion started to the 56 Hindu nations, the Hindu nations contributed almost 28% to the global GDP. Another contribution of Hindus to the human society is governance. Hinduism established a decentralized republic system of governance that established democratic principles and self-rule at the local village level. Those at the governance layer were held accountable to a constitution, a code of universal principles of human rights and proper governance as aligned to Dharma Shastras. This has been revealed in several Hindu scriptures, such as the Mahabharata. At the time of his death, how Bhishma Pitama gave the core principles of administration and running the governance as per Hindu Shastras. Another big contribution of our Hindu ancestors to the present day is technology. Hindu philosophers were the first to discover the binary number system, algorithms, and the Nyaya system of logic, which was a major influence on George Boole and Charles Babbage, the founders of modern computer science. Medicine. Hinduism is responsible for the world's first holistic plant-based system of medicine, Ayurveda. Ancient Hindu civilization also had a detailed knowledge of anatomy, embryology, digestion, metabolism, physiology, genetics, immunity, anesthesia, and cosmetic surgery. Yoga. Yoga is a comprehensive system of physical, mental, and spiritual practices designed to give human beings a superconscious breakthrough. Practices like asanas, pranayama, japa, and dharana tune the body to the space of oneness or union with Paramashiva. Mathematics. Hindu civilizations innovated the modern numeral and decimal system, the concept of zero, arithmetic, trigonometry, algebra, in fact, even calculus. The basic elements of calculus and accurately calculating the value of pi, infinite series, different kinds of geometrical series and progressions, helping us to find the exact movements and predict the exact position of cosmic bodies, the planets, and the stars. Physics. Hindu rishis conceived of the atom, the laws of motion, and quantum superposition thousands of years ago, in addition to accurately calculating the of astronomy, including a Helios also developed a theory of gravity, accurately calculated the Earth's orbit around the sun, and created precise star planet charts. Rock carved from a mountain. A mountain has been literally carved from top to bottom and converted into a stone temple. Art. Hindu culture recognized 64 traditional arts, including dance, painting, singing, instrumental music, sculpture, and many other forms of expression. Each form embodied aesthetic beauty while conveying deep spiritual truths and motives. Linguistic. Sanskrit has a vast vocabulary and adaptable grammar so that words can express any nuance of any idea. Sanskrit possesses technical and philosophical terms unknown in any other language. Modern Hindu scholars of Sanskrit note that many of the new concepts of nuclear physics or modern psychology are easy for them to grasp since they correspond directly to familiar notions of Sanskrit terminology. Literature. Hindu literature consists of innumerable rich and diverse textual sources that cover all facets of human condition, including the world's longest and oldest works of epic poetry, the Mahabharata and Ramayana, which are not just epic poetries, they reveal the truth in a deep spiritual way, taking us towards enlightenment. Now, we know that Hindu civilization is one of the most ancient civilizations. Hinduism has a recorded history of more than 12,000 years. Now, when we talk about advanced human civilizations, one which built empires and monuments, new languages, could read and write, make weapons, perform worship, demonstrate higher skills, the modern scientific community identifies 10 main advanced human civilizations. One of them is the Egyptian civilization, which existed from 3150 BCE to 332 BCE. However, this civilization today is dead. Whatever is left of this civilization are only relics and museum pieces. Egyptian civilization is traditionally stated to have started almost 5,000 years ago. Egyptians made several social, cultural, and political advancements. They are best known for creating large stone pyramids, which have stood the test of time and are seen as one of the greatest wonders of the world. However, this civilization is dead. What we see today are only its relics. Similarly, the Mesopotamian civilization, one of the most ancient civilization, advanced civilization as considered by the modern scientific community and historians. The Mesopotamian Sumerian civilization began as an agriculture and animal husbandry civilization. They are seen as one of the first urban civilization in the world. It is said that the Sumerians were one of the first to develop trade and establish industries such as weaving, leatherwork, metalwork, masonry, and pottery. However, this civilization is also dead today. The Jiahu civilization, which started way back in 7000 BCE, almost 9,000 years ago. The Jiahu was settled in the central plain of ancient China, and the people who lived there developed some of the earliest aspects of the Chinese culture. The Jiahu are also known for producing the world's oldest wine, some of the early playable musical instruments, and perhaps the earliest example of Chinese writings. However, even this civilization is dead as of now. Another great civilization which built great monuments, practiced worship, showed all sophisticated advancements of a great human civilization is the Mayan civilization, which existed around 1200 BCE up until 250 BCE. The Mayan civilization lived in areas around Central America and Mexico. It is known to be one of the most complex civilizations. It had a population boom of about 19 million people at its peak. The Mayans devised their method of writing by 700 BC and used the writings to create a solar calendar on stones. They were gifted astronomers. Their calendars are accurate even today. However, this civilization is also dead today. Similarly, the story of Greek and Roman civilization, which flourished around 2700 BCE up until 465 CE. To the Western world, Greek civilization is their mother civilization, which after degeneration gave birth to the Roman civilization. Greeks are seen as one of the first to use a democratic system of governance. From the end of Roman Empire came several countries of the present-day Europe. Many of the European languages trace their origin to the Greek civilization and to the Roman civilization. To this date, the Roman number system is followed. However, both these civilizations are also dead today. However, the civilization, the most modern, sophisticated, advanced civilization, and yet at the same time, one of the most ancient human civilization is the Hindu civilization, which has a recorded history of more than 12,000 years and is still alive and continuing. That is the civilization of Sanatana Hindu Dharma. Hinduism is the most peaceful and most contributing civilization on the planet. Indigenous Hindu nations have lived peacefully for more than 10,000 years without invading or colonizing any other nation. Hindus do not convert. Hindus do not terrorize. Hindus do not colonize. Hinduism only in various crises, compelled to escape their war-torn countries and religious or political persecution back in their respective countries of birth, have found place in Bharat and other Hindu nations. One such example is shared on 29 January 2019. As the United Nations observed the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, the president of B'nai B'rith International, a community representing the Jewish community of the world, the president, Charles Kaufman, said that Hindu people have lived to the tradition of a nation of righteousness. When thousands of Jews found safety and welcomed when they fled the Holocaust in Europe during the World War II. Indeed, Hindus are the most peaceful, most righteous people on the planet Earth. Despite this, Hindus are among the most persecuted indigenous people on the planet Earth. Hinduism has contributed phenomenally to the modern society. However, Hindus yet remain to be the most persecuted indigenous civilization on planet Earth. This is the story of Hindu Holocaust, how the most persecuted, the most contributed is also the most persecuted. Around 3200 BCE, 26 Hindu nations spanned over almost 6 million kilometers square of Asia and protected the civil, political, religious, and human rights of over 10,000 indigenous minority communities, respecting each person without discrimination and not just an equal human being, but as also a divine manifestation of God, just as it is revealed in the Kulavarna Tantra, which says, whether a woman or a man, an inurban person, Chandala, or a person who is reborn, Dvija, through education and initiation, there is absolutely no discriminatory comparison. Everyone here is considered divine, like Shiva, the primordial Hindu divinity. In over 6 million kilometers square of Asia, in 56 nations, this principle was lived, where people were not just seen as equal human beings, but were seen as divine manifestation of God, seen and considered divine like Paramashiva. This is the story of how these 56 Hindu nations went through a massive persecution and Holocaust, and today are wiped off from the geography of Asia. Around 3200 BCE, 56 Hindu nations spanned from all the way from Iraq, from a small village which exists even today called Parshu, You can Google and find out the village called Parshu, which exists in Iran. It is mentioned in Rig Veda. So all the way from Parshu in the far west, all the way up until the tip of Australia in the far southeast. In the north from Kazakhstan up until Sri Lanka in the south, 56 Hindu nations spanned a large landmass of South Asian subcontinent and protected the rights of people, protecting people as not just equal human beings, but as divine manifestations of Paramashiva, giving them not just human rights, but divine rights, the right to live as Paramashiva, the right to manifest their Paramashivatva, the right to see and respect, honor every being as Paramashiva. After the end of Mahabharata and over the periods of time in the last 5,000 years, slowly, one by one, these 56 Hindu nations collapsed. By the year 2007, 0 Hindu nations existed on planet Earth. The total area of Hindu nations became 0 million kilometers square. In 2007, when Nepal, the last Hindu nation, adopted a secular constitution, there ceased to exist any Hindu nation in the entire planet Earth. Now let us look at how each one of these Hindu nations collapsed one by one, starting with Gandhara, which is around the modern day Afghanistan. Around 3162 BCE, Gandhari, the queen from Gandhar, played a major role in the war of Mahabharata. Gandhar was known as a Mahajanapada, a great republic. It also finds mention during the Mauryan Empire and recorded in the court records of Chandragupta Maurya's Mauryan Empire. Until very recently, almost just 700 years ago, Afghanistan, or erstwhile Gandhara, still had a massive Hindu population. It is evident as we see a picture in front of us, a picture of a deity of Lord Ganesha from 500 CE. Very recently, up until very recently, Afghanistan had a substantial Hindu population. Around 1/3 of the population of Afghanistan, up until very recently, around 1300 years ago, was a Hindu population. In fact, till 285 BCE, Gandhara was part of the Mauryan Empire, and up until 700 CE, around 1/3 of the population of Afghanistan was a Hindu population. By the year 2020, less than 0.03% of the population in Afghanistan is Hindu. Similar is the story of Sri Lanka. Lanka finds its mention in the famous Puranic epic in the story of Bhagwan Rama. Around 5650 BCE, Bhagwan Rama makes a bridge to rescue Sita Mata from Lanka. Much later, in 1041 BCE, Lanka became a part of the Chola Empire. And much later, around 271 BCE, Lanka was a part of the Mauryan Empire. Up until as recently as 1971, 1/4 of the population in Sri Lanka was Hindu. By 2012, only 12.6% of the population in Lanka was Hindu. By 2022, we do not know how much is the Hindu population in Lanka. Similar is the story of Indonesia and Bali, which were once a part of Srivijaya Empire, which existed around 1000 CE. By 1571 CE, due to various invasions by the Dutch, English, Portuguese, and other invasions, the Hindu kingdom of Srivijaya collapsed. And thus, Indonesia, Bali, Malaysia, these regions ceased to exist as Hindu nations. And the Hindu population in these locations dwindled and got converted to various other religions, and the Hindu civilization was uprooted. Similar is the story of Nepal. Nepal has one of the longest unbroken history as a Hindu civilization. Nepal is mentioned in our Puranas and recorded in our Shastras, which date more than 10,000 years. By the year 2007, Nepal ceased to exist as a Hindu nation as it adopted a secular constitution. Pakistan. It is a very surprising thing today for most of us to know that during the ancient era, as it is mentioned in our Puranas, our scriptures, our recorded history, Pakistan, the present day Pakistan, was once upon a time the center of Hindu civilization. If you look at the extent of the Hindu civilization and where all the various events happened, such as during the Mahabharata, the cities which are mentioned in Mahabharata, the various clans, such as the Kuru, where they lived, when we again trace back those cities, those rivers, we find that much of the happenings of what is mentioned in the Mahabharata happened in Pakistan, in the present day Pakistan. In fact, the present day Pakistan was at the center of the Hindu civilization, which spanned all the way from Parshu, which is in Iran, present day Iran, in the far west, all the way till up until the southern tip, up until the northern tip of Australia, all the way in the southeast. In this vast stretch of landmass, literally the most important epicenter of all the happenings of the Hindu civilization, all the major decisions, political happenings were happening in the center of this Hindu ecosystem, which was centered in today's Pakistan. By the year 1955 or 1951, only 12.9% of the total population in Pakistan was Hindu. By the year 1998, it drastically fell and reduced to 1.6%. By the year 2022, we do not know how many Hindus are left in Pakistan. Pakistan, the present day Pakistan, was once a part of Mauryan Empire, and much earlier to that was part of the Kushan Empire, both ancient Hindu nations. Similar is the story of Bangladesh. Bangladesh was part of the Pala Empire. Even during 650 BCE, the present day Bangladesh was part of two ancient Hindu kingdoms, Kashi and Magad. 22% of the population in Bangladesh was Hindu. By 1998, it fell to 10%. By 2011, it fell even lower, 8.9%. By 2022, we do not know how many Hindus are left in Bangladesh. Bangladesh records the story of massive Hindu persecution. In 1971, a big genocide occurred, a genocide which is never taught to modern Hindus, a genocide which is never recorded in news and obviously wiped off from the history which is taught in schools and universities. This genocide began on 26 March 1971, where more than 3 million people were killed and 350,000 women were raped in a genocidal gang rape. 10 million Hindus fled the country. 30 million became internally displaced. Naturally, the population of Hindus in Bangladesh, which was 22% in 1951, fell to less than 10% by 1998 and is still falling day by day. Similar is the story of the genocide of Kashmiri Hindus, which started around 20 January 1990, which is popularly known as the Exodus, the Day of Exodus. Before the Exodus, 160,000 Hindus lived in Kashmir. The state of Kashmir itself has its origin of its name to Rishi Kashyapa, an ancient rishi. Today, Hindus are denied rights in the world. There are some 30 Christian countries in the world, which means constitution of more than 30 countries of the world officially declares religion of Christianity as their official state religion. Similarly, some 40 countries declare Islam as their official state religion. 2 countries, Bhutan and Cambodia, declare Buddhism as the state religion. However, we need to ask ourselves why there is no country on planet Earth which declares Hinduism as its state religion. It is no surprise that as there ceases to exist even one country other than KAILASA, which takes responsibility to protect the religion of Hinduism, the Hindu tradition, the Hindu civilization, as in its original form, as revealed in the Veda Agamas, the Hindu scriptures. As there is no country other than KAILASA, it is for this reason we are where we are today. We are at the end of the Hindu Holocaust, where we have gone so down and lost so much that we cannot afford to lose anymore. We need to revive Hinduism, which is the most contributing, most peaceful civilization in the history of humanity. Let us look at this news clip. Whenever there is a persecution of any religious minority in any corner of the world, leaders of several countries stand together to protect that persecuted community. However, there is no such voice for Hindus in the world. Despite being the most persecuted community in the world, most enriching, most contributing, most dharmic, we have no such voice in the world other than KAILASA. The Hindu Holocaust and the destruction of Hindu nations have made Hindus orphan. Today, no nation other than KAILASA protects and stands for Hindu interest, Hindu political, religious, and human rights. It is the nation of KAILASA which was one of the first to present the point of Kashmir Hindu genocide of Kashmiri Hindus in the international forum. When the temple of Sabrimala was violated, it is KAILASA which took the matter to the United Nations. When our saints, such as Kalpavrikshagiri Maharaj, was mob lynched and killed in Palghar mob lynching, it is KAILASA which took the matter to the UN Human Rights Commission. It is no other country other than KAILASA which takes up matters important for Hinduism and takes it to the international arena. Now, let us look at the life and introduction to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, who is reviving KAILASA. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Jagadguru Mahasanidhanam, His Divine Holiness, Bhagwan Sri Nithyananda Paramashivam, is the reviver of KAILASA, a macrocosmic, ancient, enlightened Hindu civilizational nation. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is the 1008th incarnation of Paramashiva, as per Hinduism, recognized by his predecessors, who are enlightened masters and adepts. the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has made the science of power manifestation, yoga, and temple based universities a lifestyle for humanity. Before 1981, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was identified as a 1008th incarnation of Paramashiva by spiritual adepts and enlightened masters of Hinduism. In the year 1981, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was initiated into Bala Sannyas and performed his first Chaturmasya or pilgrimage at the age of 3. In the year 1988, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was coronated as the future Guru Mahasanidhanam or Pontiff of the Thundai Mandala Adinam, the oldest monastic university. On 24th May 1994, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was declared as the successor of Arunachala Saranga Pitha by Guru Parampara. In the year 1999, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism founded the mission Nithyananda Sangha to revive KAILASA internationally. In the year 1999, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was coronated as the successor of Kashi Saranga Pitha. On 4th November 2002, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism founded Adi Kailasa Saranga Pitham. On 1st January 2004, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was declared as the successor of Bhagyanagra Sripura Saranga Pitham and impregnated as the 293rd Guru Mahasanidhanam of Madurai Shamla Pitha Sarvanga Pitham, the oldest Hindu papal state and monastic kingdom. In the year 2013, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was officially coronated as a Mahamandaleshwar or the supreme spiritual head of Mahanirvani Akhada, which is in the same year in 2013, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was declared as the Acharya Mahamandaleshwar of Atal Akhada. Atal Akhada is the oldest monastic order in Hinduism. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was coronated by Acharya Mahamandaleshwar Sukadevanandaji, the then incumbent spiritual head. In the year 2014, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was coronated as the Guru Mahasanidhanam of Tanjore Adinam. Similarly, in the year 2014, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was coronated as the Guru Mahasanidhanam of Tirvarur Adinam and as the Guru Mahasanidhanam of Vedaranyam Adinam and as the Guru Mahasanidhanam of Panchanadikulam Adinam. In the year 2015, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism was coronated as the Guru Mahasanidhanam of Dharma Mukti Swargapuram Adinam. In the same year, he was coronated as the Guru Mahasanidhanam of Adipitha Koladamat. And finally, in 2015, he was elected as the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism by a congregation of over 1,000 spiritual leaders and pontiffs. Now let us look at some of the global initiatives of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism through various international agencies and bodies. The following pictures show a small glimpse of 28 years of relentless humanitarian services initiatives, including free vegetarian food, medical services, natural disaster relief, women empowerment initiatives, conflict resolution, and peace initiatives, sustainable Hindu practices. All these services offered by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism through various. Our contributions by Angus Madison, 1/4 of the global GDP. In fact, taking all the indigenous civilizations that were similar to Hinduism, it is more than 60% of the world GDP. The Hindu nations were known for their material prosperity. They were known as the Golden Bird. This attracted several invaders to attack Hindu temples and loot the wealth, the gold, which belonged to Paramashiva. Verse, you shall produce and safely store food grains in huge quantities. That is your vratam. The word quantities, and that during the era before invasions, there were no famines in Hindu nations despite less rainfall. Hindu nations offered free food to everyone, free food, free education, and free medical technical advancements. Now let us look at this with some other facts. Even after independence, at the end of the invasions of the Hindu Shastras, as revealed in the Hindu tradition, Annam Bahu Kurvitta Tadvratam, such and several more Hindu principles were not lived anymore, as Hindu nations and Hindu principles, Hindu lifestyle in the economic dimension and various other dimensions stopped existing as the Hindu nations, were invaded and colonized and continued to carry the colonial system even after the Bengal famine, where, as per existing records, more than 3 million people were murdered. The prime minister, they could not do anything about the people dying of hunger because Hindus bred like rabbits and famine was their fault. The whole Hindu ecosystem collapsed. Not only the Hindus were heavily persecuted, they were blamed for the persecution on. Now let us look at this fact in perspective. When we practiced and the Hindu principles such as revealed in Taittiriya Upanishad, Annam Bahu Kurvitta Tadvratam, there were no famines despite less rainfall. There was no hunger despite crop failures. Food was free, education was free, medicine was free. After the collapse of Hindu nations and colonization, we had 31 famines, which resulted in death of 33% of the population. 29 million Hindus were starved to death. Never in the history of these Hindu nations, in the past 10,000 years, 1/3 of the population was wiped off by hunger. In fact, for the history of last 10,000 years, what we read, food was free. And after this, after such massive holocaust, we Hindus are blamed for religion. On this fact, my eyes, and I am convinced that this exhaustion and starvation are due not, as their beneficiaries claim, to the overpopulation and superstition, but to the most sordid and criminal exploitation of a nation by another in all recorded history. Now, with this perspective, let's understand some of the contributions of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism through KAILASA. As we just saw, how more than 3 million people were murdered by starving them, by denying them food, and then they were blamed that they died because they bred like rabbits, because the religion which they practiced was not good. This is what happened in 1943, how 3 million people were murdered by starvation. Now let us look at some of the facts. In the year 2016, in Ujjain Kumbh Mela, KAILASA alone served organic food to over 3 million people single-handedly. Under the leadership of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagwan Sri Nithyananda Paramashivam, KAILASA served more than 3 million meals, organic meals in 2016, and has served almost billion free meals in the past 26 years. We must understand that the world's biggest empire, which ruled over 1/3 of the world's population, killed more than 3 million people by hunger and claimed they did not have food. They did not have food to feed 3 million people. And at the same time, KAILASA, with merely 200 volunteers and citizens of KAILASA, KAILASAvasis, Kailasians, was able to feed 3 million people in 2016 in Ujjain Kumbh Mela. This shows that our problems are solvable. We just need intention and guidance from the enlightened master the incarnations. We need guidance from the Hindu principles as revealed by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagwan Sri Nithyananda Paramashivam, with the guidance of Bhagwan Paramashiva himself in form of Guru, in form of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. We can see how the problem, which could not be solved by the world's biggest empire, which ruled over 1/3 of human race, was can be easily solved by less than 200 volunteers and citizens. KAILASA is a nation not driven by dispassionate, selfless service done as an offering to the God in pursuit of liberation. KAILASA lives the Hindu Shastras, such as what we just saw in the Taittiriya Upanishad in verse 3.9.1, which says, "You shall produce and safely store food grains in huge quantities. That is your vratam, spiritual vow for liberation." Massive economic expansion and breakthrough in public welfare that we saw in the Hindu nations, 56 Hindu nations across the past 12,000 years, was an outcome of an entire Hindu civilization pursuing enlightenment. And it is exactly for this that the colonial invaders blamed us, calling us beastly religion, beastly people with a beastly religion. It is in fact the most divine religion and the most divine people, the people who see others as Paramashiva. Our only mistake as a Hindu civilization was we saw even the invaders as God. We saw even the people who had come to exploit us as God, as Atiti Deva Bhava. This is not our weakness. This is our tradition. We have been wrongly taught and taught to think that our Hindu principles are the reason why we were colonized. It is not true. It is because of our Hindu principles, such as revealed in Taittiriya Upanishad and shared with us, that we Hindu nations had massive economic expansion and breakthrough in public welfare. We protected the human rights, and though there was people, we had the completion and space to see as divine manifestation of God, because it is for these principles we live, and through these principles we expanded and will continue to expand and enrich the world. Continuing with the same principles as our Hindu ancestors have been practicing, on 9th September 2011, Nithyananda Annale, we can see, is serving food to people, visitors. We can see the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism serving food. The Nithyananda Annale in Tiruvannamalai was started much earlier. In the year 2005, the head of the State Department of HRNC openly acknowledged in a public speech that the state government started Annadana, taking inspiration from the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, as single-handedly, alone, the Tiruvannamalai Annale was serving almost 3 million Hindu pilgrims each month. With very few volunteers, very few people, such massive services were being offered by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism through KAILASA, that even the state government took inspiration and started offering Annadan. With very few people, but guided by the incarnation of Paramashiva, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, we see how such massive services can be offered so simply. In the pictures in front of us, we see how KAILASA has been offering Annadan throughout the years in various locations, such as Tiruvannamalai. In the picture in front of us, from 2012 in Pondicherry, we see KAILASA, by the grace of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, offering various services during the Thane flood. In Pondicherry, we see the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism giving milk to children. We see in the pictures flood relief. Throughout the years, KAILASA throughout the years in various locations, we see KAILASA in various places. Even in several countries, in Malaysia, and even during the COVID crisis. Now, moving on to some other global initiatives and contributions of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. Up until now, we just had a brief glimpse at the various services such as Annadan. Likewise, we'll be going through various services offered by KAILASA by the guidance, by the grace of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. Now, moving on with the introduction to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has authored more than 300 books and written more than 10,000 articles, which have been translated into 50 languages with over 1,000 titles. Over 20 million copies, books, and articles have been sold, read, and downloaded. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has established the largest Hindu library with over 1 million books, 1 million palm leaf scriptures, and over 20 million digital books. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is revered as the most prolific and most viewed guru in the digital world. He is read and watched by over 1 billion followers in Hinduism. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism has delivered over 10,000 hours of discourses, which have gathered over 1 billion views on social media. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is respected as commentator of all sacred scriptures such as Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita, Shiva Sutras, Yoga Sutras, Ashtavakra Gita, Jain Sutras, etc. Pontiff of Hinduism is honored as leader of Hinduism, the most awarded, internationally recognized Hindu leader. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is acclaimed as one of the top 100 spiritually influential living personalities by Watkins Mind, Body, and Spirit magazine. The Sovereign Order of KAILASA, led by the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Bhagwan Sri Nithyananda Paramashivam, and Nithyananda Order of, has established the largest Hindu university in the world with satellite campuses in 150 countries. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is the establisher of over 1,000 KAILASA Enlightenment ecosystems. The Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism is the founder and reviver of over 100 Sarvangapithams. With this, we come to the end of this brief introduction to the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. Today we saw a little bit more elaboration on one of the contributions of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, which is a revival of the Hindu lifestyle of Annadan through various Annalayas, a service which is offered throughout these 100 Sarvangapithams around the world and these 1,000 centers, 1,000 KAILASA Enlightenment ecosystems which exist around the world. With this, we come to the end of today's segment. Now, we'll be moving on to our next segment, which is the presidential address of the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism. Now, please prepare yourselves to welcome our beloved Guru, Swamiji, the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism, Jagadguru Mahasanidhanam, His Divine Holiness, Bhagwan Sri Nithyananda Paramashivam, in the upcoming Alive Satsang. So please fold your hands together in front of your heart, bring your head, neck, and spine in a straight line, and let us chant the Mahavakya to receive the Supreme Pontiff of Hinduism in the upcoming Alive Satsang. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham. Om Nithyananda Paramashivoham.
Paramashivasamarambam Nithyanandeshwari Paramashiva Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. I welcome you all with my love and blessing on this auspicious Navaratri. I welcome all of you with my love and blessings. This Navaratri, I'll continue that 64 manifestations of Paramashiva. I was explaining, connecting all of you with the 64 manifestations of Paramashiva. Further manifestations, and also answer your questions. Spend some time with you guys every day. This whole Navaratri. Oh God. The more time I sit in Samadhi, more the real work is happening. Continuously happening. I think Paramashiva keeps me in Samadhi and works through this body so powerfully. The next Paramashiva's manifestation is Ardhanarishwara Murti. You should know, Ardhanarishwara is the manifestation of Tantric enlightenment, highest enlightenment as per Tantra. Tantric tradition. Ardhanarishwara is the symbol. Listen, see, each Murta is like a manifestation of the enlightenment through one sampradaya. Shaivism has hundreds of sampradayas. So each sampradaya worships one manifestation of Paramashiva. That sampradaya's principles, concepts, truths, powerful cognitions, all is manifested in that form of Paramashiva. All the great truths of Paramashiva, all the truths Paramashiva revealed in Tantra is manifested in this one form, Ardhanarishwara. Understand? Tantra is the most beautiful, powerful, easiest enlightenment science, because there's no vidhi and nisheda in Tantra. It's a pure, powerful cognitions. See, in every sampradaya, we give some do's and don'ts. Whenever there is some don'ts, always you feel resisting. But in Tantra Sampradaya, there is no don'ts. Just using the powerful cognitions, your day-to-day regular activities are enough. You can achieve enlightenment. Like, you don't need to go on a particular diet. You don't need to go on a particular lifestyle. You don't need to go on particular dressing style. You don't need to make difficult decisions about your sex and bodily needs. Listen. Sexual activity. Sometimes to ensure that relationship still exists. Sometimes the urge generated through the hormonal pressure. Sometimes the bodily need. Sometimes the kind of a comfort it gives. Sometimes to forget all other worries and sufferings. There are multiple reasons. If you give 100 reasons for your sexual activity, hormonal urge, bodily need, emotional satisfaction, physical warmth, feeling grounded, to forget other worries and depression. You may have 100 reasons. Each of the Hindu tradition asks you to avoid sex due to some reason. For example, if you see Vedanta, Vedanta will say whatever may be the reason, avoid it. If you go to yoga tradition, they will say avoid as a bodily urge, but other reasons are okay. So each one will say yes for some reasons, say no for some reasons. But Tantra does not say no for any reason. It only helps you to have powerful cognition and have your activity strengthen your consciousness and manifest powers. Listen, see, I'll give you the ultimate secret. Everything is right if your consciousness is more powerful than your actions. Everything is wrong if your actions can dilute your consciousness. Listen, when I say everything, I mean everything. All of you understand. If the power of your consciousness is not diluted, no actions, effect, side effect touches you. Tantra is consciousness centered tradition. It is not body centered, mind centered, emotion centered. It is consciousness centered tradition. Please listen intensely. All the truths I am revealing, if your consciousness is shaken, even a simple act, extremely simple act, looking at a male or female, looking at the opposite gender is wrong. If your consciousness is not shaken, nothing is wrong. There is no such thing as wrong. Tantra is all about strengthening your consciousness through every action. Tantra disciple asks, is sex wrong? Guru answers straight one line. If the person with whom you are having relationship is higher conscious than you, it is a initiation, it's a blessing. The person with whom you are having relationship is lower than your consciousness, it is loss, not wrong, but loss. Listen. Tantra looks at the sex as only profit loss activity, not right wrong activity. Understand it. If you understand, you can experience Ardhanarishwara today. This one understanding about Tantra not only can enlighten you, can make you manifest all powers. Listen, all powers are from your sexual energy. If you feel you have too many patterns, you are too complicated about your food, your sleep, your sex, your priorities. If you feel you are complicated, Tantra is for you. How many of you put in your Facebook the relationship status? Many people put single, many people put married, many people put it is complicated. If you put complicated, Tantra is for you. Paramashiva has revealed the signs thousands of years before for all those who put in their Facebook status, relationship complicated. If you feel you are messed up, Tantra is for you. All those who put relationship status as complicated in Facebook status. Do not miss Tantra. Understand it. I'll give you the revelations directly from Paramashiva. In the public platform, how much can be revealed, that much I will reveal. The Mooladhara Chakra, symbolic conscious representation of the sex energy, is described with 4 petals, lotus. 4-petal lotus. The 1 petal represents autosex, means enjoying your own body. Like even eating tasty food comes under autosex. Eating tasty food up to masturbation, whole thing falls under autosex. Enjoying your own body. The second is enjoying your own gender, same sex. Third lotus petal is enjoying the opposite gender. The fourth lotus petal is enjoying the whole cosmos, whole universe, having union with this whole universe. That's the fourth petal. Listen. Ardhanarishwara is the manifestation, represents all the 4 completion, fulfillment, the all 4 dimensions in you. When it manifests into the complete completion, you become Ardhanarishwara. Ardhanarishwara manifests in your body. I tell you. Most powerful sexual energy is radiated by the kids who are taught from young age to connect with Krishna or Muruga. Understand? In Hindu tradition, if you are born from Vaishnavite family, in the young age itself, you will automatically pick up Krishna as your beloved if you are in the female body, if you are in the male body as a friend. Whether you are a male or female, you will develop some kind of an attachment, feeling connection with Krishna from the young age. Same way, if you are from Shaivite family, you will develop the connection